Finishers MMA, finishersmma.com, at Finishers. That's how you find them on social media. These guys have a show with us every Monday called Now We Go. You can check it out. Zach, JM, Thor, Grace, there's too many to name that come out of that school, and they are killers in the game. They are the biggest MMA jiu-jitsu school in the area, and they are owning the East Coast. You can contact them at 610-438-0746. Ask for Andrew. They are at 3761 Nicholas Street in Easton, PA. They have 2 locations as of now, Bethlehem and Allentown. They are growing into 3, 4, 5, 6. I would say they are taking over, but they already have. Check them out on all of their social media. They are awesome to follow. And if you're looking to get in shape, you're looking to choke people, you're looking to do anything at all to better your life, finishersmma.com. AllValleyRooter.net. That's not how you pronounce it all the time. I just say it that way. All Valley Rooter, Jared LaBarba. He is my plumber. He's the show's plumber. I'm getting him plumbing business all over, and I love that he is getting what he wants. He has 24-hour emergency service. He is certified, insured, and professional. You can follow him at All Valley Rooter. He's on social media, and you can find his information at allvalleyrooter.net. Jared came down over the weekend and he fixed a problem down here. He's super professional. I love him as a person. I love his business. He grew it, and he's doing his own thing. It's allvalleyrooter.net. It's 24-hour professional plumbing services. He can help you out with everything you need. It's 610-762-1656. He's certified, insured, and professional. Do not be afraid to contact him for any of your plumbing needs. Support Jared. Jared supports us. Luke Delmeyer Handmade Custom Knives. I love Luke. It's lukedelmeyer.com. He's a farrier, a bladesmith, and a blacksmith. He has custom knives, and the best part about it is you can take classes to make them. So not only can you take a class to learn how to make knives, at the end of the class, you get that knife. We're working on a project together. He started recently getting into chef knives, so he's starting to make chef knives. He makes hunting knives. He can make any of your needs as far as blacksmithing. That's at Luke Delmeyer on Instagram. That is the best way to follow him. You can see all the stuff that he's posting. He shares, he does raffles, he gives giveaways. Check out all things Luke Delmeyer at lukedelmeyer.com. We've had him on the show before. You can dig down in the library, listen to how he got started and where he's at now. I'm excited to work with Luke. He's a really good friend of the show, and I'm excited to showcase his chef knife that he's making me. Check out all things Luke Delmeyer at lukedelmeyer.com. Farrier, bladesmith, blacksmith. Rips Auto Detail. This guy is the best, hands down, in the area. I've interviewed him. I know his story. He's doing things that others aren't, and I love that he fucks with the show. I love getting the best of the best and having them support and be a part of this. That's what the sponsorship is for. I'm giving you the best people in their profession, and Rips is the best at auto detail. It's at Rips Auto Detail for Instagram. You follow that. He's showing you the different cars he does, and it's at 630 North Nelson Street in Allentown, PA. He offers paint correction, ceramic, SPS coatings, and more. This is appointment only, and it's ripsautodetail@gmail.com. You can call him at 484-553-1366. I tell you, follow him. If you don't know, you want to know more about what he does, follow him on Instagram. Follow Rips Auto Detail, and you can see all the things that Rip does. He's a big part of the show. We have a separate show we do called Road Dogs, and you can check out his past interviews and hear his whole story. I couldn't recommend this guy more for your auto, car, boat, plane. This guy literally has done everything, and he is the best in the area doing this. Rips Auto Detail.
So you used to skate?
Yeah. Way back in the day, my brother, I started skating in probably grades. My brother skated a lot. I always liked the culture, like it wasn't the way it is now. Like, I grew up in the 90s. I loved like the 90s fucking skate scene and all that. Yeah. Everything was big baggy clothes. Yeah. And then my brother was one of the first people in the area. My parents let him put a half pipe in the backyard, and then like I just loved people coming over all the time. And then like his one buddy Tucker used to have a ramp way back here in fucking Lower Nazareth. by the railroad track. So I used to go and hang out with them, and then like just meeting his older friends. And then I just wasn't great at it, but I really liked ramp. And then like my knees were just fucked from doing it. When then probably about, I don't know, when I was like 20, 29, early 30s, I just started kind of going to Penn Skate with my buddies just to fuck around. And we went to Woodward once. That was fun. But I just needed to fucking, it just fucked my back up, my knees up. If I fell once, I was like, dude, I don't got insurance. I'm like stupid old people shit. And then when I started the clothing company, my brother was like, hey, like we should do decks. So these were like the early decks.
Sick.
Yeah, so we did the one skull there, John McNeil did. The other one's Rizart, and then I think we did well with them, like, but it's hard to make money selling skateboards. Like the profit margin is like nothing. Yeah. So my brother primarily did that, and then we had a falling out, and then he did Shipyard Skates, and like just kind of did a skateboard project, and then I just kind of went this way, and then it just kind of turned into all this. But no, I grew up skating. I liked it. It was fun. I just liked going and hanging out, smoking weed with my friends and wrecking shit.
It's funny you say the 90s, like with the baggy clothes and everything. It's like everything goes like full circle. It's like back in the early 80s when street skating first came out, the whole stilo was like flat brim hats, like a polo shirt and like your Doc Martens.
Yeah.
You know, or like a cool pair of like half cabs. It's like, and now it's like back full circle. People like, I think it was more like of a punk look back then. You know, like people were like, they almost look like.
That was like a big influence with me for shit was the punk style and stuff. And then like, I kind of got into like that whole scene, like Pennywise, Bad Religion. Like that was kind of like that whole niche, you know, going to the Warped Tour. Like I just loved the culture. I loved the clothing. I loved everything about it. I mean, it's pretty much what drove me to start this is because I remember when I was doing this originally, the whole thing was like, it started turning into the tight clothes. And like, I didn't like buying anything. And I didn't like, there was, you know, the internet was kind of new and I was starting to get stuff out of LA and just following these weird, just like culture clothing companies that would pop up that like nobody knew about around here, like shit that would eventually get into PacSun, and then I'd be like, oh fuck them. Meanwhile, now I know what money they made doing that, and I was like, god damn it, I wish I got in PacSun.
Dude, it's funny. I talk to my wife about this all the time. So I was heavily influenced by graffiti, skateboarding,
me too,
man.
When
I was a kid, and I always say, I could have been that dude Mark Echo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because so like when I was in,
Did you read his book?
No, dude, I haven't. Sorry.
You're good, man.
You know, it'd probably be something really interesting I'd be into.
Cool. It's an easy read too. My girlfriend got it for me years ago, but
really?
It was called Unlabeled, and it was about how like he started the whole thing and like how at one point Tommy Hilfiger was going to buy it off of him, and they were on a yacht, and they were like offered like multi-million-dollar deals, and they thought it was in the bag, and then the next day it was like, I'm not interested. And it was like them having to like pick up and like, you know, be like, fuck this, we're going to make this bigger. Like, it's a cool fucking read.
Yeah. Yeah, they're, I remember when they came out with their, what was it, like Cut and Sew, which was like his higher end brand stuff. And I remember seeing it at some like, like a big mall somewhere, and it was just like really cool because it was like, holy shit, this dude's like, he's getting into this whole other market now, because it was like a real high end like mall.
He did, like, it was crazy because he started that like spray painting like cutouts and shit on people's jackets, in high school, and then like he just didn't stop doing it. But it was like the same conversation we had. Like he like lived in his parents' garage, and like you know what I mean. Like they were hustling it every day. He wasn't asking people, "Hey, can I use all your stuff to make my thing?"
Right. Yeah, it's funny though. That dude was like I always say like, people would be like, oh, like the whole graffiti thing isn't really like something that would be considered art, and it's like, man,
I love it. A friend of mine, Joel from Hellbound, he
sick, dude.
yeah.
yeah,
He-
dude.
he
My
did-
first tattoo, bro. This one right here.
Yeah, he
Tattooed right there.
he designed what is it? The one board over there, and it's this one on this side, and then we did a T-shirt together. But a friend of mine hooked me up with him, and he blasted. If you go to Penn Skate, there's a huge thing that says "Never Again,"
Right.
and I filmed the video of him doing that, and like I didn't know what I was doing back then, so like I started just kind of telling him like, "Hey man, you ever throw tags up? Like I love graffiti," and like.
Right.
So he started taking me down to fucking 5 Points in New York, and like they it was like I was like meeting like real deal, legit
Yeah,
fucking
bombers.
Yeah, man. Like
Yeah,
you
real ones.
had to know what you were doing in order to be down there.
Right.
And he was doing the shit all out of a wheelchair.
Right,
and then
right.
he got sick and passed. But like sometimes I'm like, man, like what the fuck would we have done? Because we were just scratching the surface. I was just some stupid kid walking around in a circle, being like, I sell T-shirts. Like knowing what I know now, I'm like, dude, we could be fucking making clothing lines. like,
It's funny, man.
yeah, but
Probably crossed paths with you a million times.
I guarantee it, man.
Right. Yeah, that I remember that their tattoo parlor on.
Yep.
What was it, like on Hamilton or whatever?
Yeah, Pleasure and Pain was the first one, and then and I had Tom Waltemeyer on, who originally was from that, and then his second one, I think he opened up Hellbound, and it was just a one. I think he was the only one there, but he was the first person I ever knew where somebody'd come in and be like, "Hey man, I'm thinking about doing this," and he'd be like, "Yeah, dude," he's like, "That shit's stupid. I'm not doing that."
Dude. Yeah, no, I met him on a few occasions, dude, and it's just like a pretty. So I used to go. What was the name of that club that was like right down the block? That was super, like the Freight Yard.
Yeah.
Dude, so I used to go there a lot, and he used to be there a lot.
Yeah.
And just like bump into the dude all the time. Dude.
Yeah.
It's just like a no bullshit type of character.
Yeah, dude. We'll get into it after the show, but he told me stories where, because when it was an hour into the city, so we'd drive, and his girlfriend at the time, I basically, and like he was a scary dude, like he'd hit me up and be like, "Yo, we're going into New York today. You driving?"
Right.
I didn't want to go sometimes because I'd be like, man, like this is the 5th Sunday in a row. Like I'm hungover. Like I just want to fucking, I got to work tomorrow. And you couldn't say no to him really. But he told me a couple times, like he's like the one time he wanted to know what it was like to be on the fucking streets and homeless. So he fucking got dropped off, and he said he brought a pistol with him, and he just went and lived with fucking homeless people for a fucking, I think it was a weekend. He just lived with homeless people, and then he said then he had a fucking
In his wheelchair.
I think he was still in the wheelchair at the time,
wow.
and then he said he had a limousine pick him up, and then he had a limo take him all the way home.
Dude, it's crazy. That dude's.
He might not have been in a wheelchair because he got in the wheelchair where he was dating like a prostitute or a stripper, and it was just like the chaos and toxic shit of dating a fucking stripper, or a prostitute. That's not fun. I'm sure it's great in the beginning, and then he said they were arguing, and he said fuck you, and they were going over the bridge, and he opened the door and fucking Superman'd over the bridge, hit a fucking tree, and then that's what saved his life, and then he ended up paralyzed from jumping off the fucking bridge.
It's crazy. You ever hear when it's like a urban legend?
Yeah.
That dude is like an urban
Yeah,
legend.
yeah.
Like I swear to God, dude. When I was a kid, you'd hear about him, and then when I met him, I was like,
He was
dude, this dude is gnarly.
he looked like a fucking like a lineman. Like he was a big fucking
he was
dude.
not a little dude. He was
No,
a big dude.
I mean, he was big being in a wheelchair, but like I saw pictures of him like from but I think he also said that being in the wheelchair saved his life because he would have got fucking wilder than he already was, and he's like, dude, that was going nowhere.
He always rolled deep too, man. You never seen that dude without like a whole crew of people, bro.
Yeah, I had one of his buddies on, Vince, who tattoos, and I met Vince and this other dude A1 through him, and we're gonna do a podcast together then, and I'm sure it'll come up talking about him. But I talked to him for like an hour about Joel. I was like, he was awesome.
Yeah. Joe wouldn't even tattoo me that day. He was like, yo, dude, he's gonna do it. And I was like, well, who's that dude? He's like, he's just gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then he left. He left me and the dude in the studio. And
yeah, I remember some dude came in and he's like, that shit's gay, dude. He's like, I ain't fucking doing that. And the guy's like, what? And he's like, yeah, man. He goes, I don't have to fucking do anything I don't want to. But he was in talks with Nike right when it was before SB was coming out, and they were doing like the new Nike shoes, and he was sending them he had a sketchbook and he would be sketching out Nikes, and he was making
nice.
custom Nikes, and they were actually in talks of him designing shoes.
Dude, how crazy is that?
Yeah. And then it was just, it was not how it is now. Back then, like, you know, he's like mailing them.
Right.
And like phone calls. So like, it was very hard to do. And then he was trying to stay on top of that. And then he'd be like, all I need to do is one motherfucking shoe. One motherfucking shoe, and I get paid, and I don't got to do this dumb shit anymore. He was dope. I didn't get any of his art after he died. It was one thing I asked his wife, and
his studio was sick.
Yeah,
dude. I remember like you would walk in his studio, like would leave an impression on you.
Yeah, I mean, he
like literally,
it was so ahead of his time. Where you know what I mean?
Dude.
Like
the whole thing. Like, I mean, I was in high school when he opened up that studio. So I'm telling you that, like, from Allentown to Bethlehem, it doesn't seem like it's not like a long trip. It's like what, 15-minute drive.
Yeah,
but like, you don't really get the like influence from Allentown into Bethlehem. Bethlehem's its own thing. Allentown's its own thing. But dude, people would be like, yo, you gotta go to this studio, dude. It's sick.
Yeah, it was very New York City before anyone around here knew what New York City was.
And it was like dark, dude. It was like grungy and like gritty. You would walk in there and you almost like, yo, I'm gonna be more badass.
Yeah, I mean, he and he would just rip butts the whole time.
Oh, dude, yeah,
it'd be like smoke clouds.
Like outside, he would just be out there smoking all day, dude. Yeah.
What the hell was I gonna say? What's funny is he had a bunch of artwork, and I kept saying to Heather, but I get it. Like, I've had people pass, and that's fucked up when that happens, and you don't end up talking to everybody, and shit gets weird. So I was talking to Vince, and I'm like, dude, I never got any of his artwork. I said this one time he was doing a tattoo convention, and I went over there, and I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm making my fucking, my wall hang. And I was like, well, what is it? And he just shows it to me, and it's a fucking G'd up fucking turkey with a gobbler, and it's got fucking gold on it, and it's handing a gun. He's like, it's a fucking gangster turkey. And I go, what? And he goes, no one's gonna have this. It's a fucking gangster turkey. So I was telling the story to Vince, and he goes, I know who has that. And he's like, I'm getting his art back. And he's like, I will try as hard as I can to get you that piece for the studio. And I was like, dude, if you could get me that. It's like one of those things where, like, when my friends pass, it's like some of the stuff down here is like, shit they had in their apartment, like that boring things from a friend of mine that died, and the hot dog things from another friend. So it's like I just try and keep stuff around. It's like dope art from, like, it was like, like that was like a connection I had with my friend where, like, we're both like into Banksy, and like he got this thing for his living room. So I like having stuff like that where it's just like a personal piece, but it's like really fucking cool art. Right. So like I really hope it comes through, because I tell people all the time, like, one time my friend made this gangster turkey. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that was Joel. Joel just did whatever he wanted. But he had so much art. And then I know Stacy down there got a piece, and I always try and steal it when I'm there.
Going back to the skateboarding, so I'm heavily influenced graffiti, blah blah blah, drawing, all that stuff, right? So I didn't draw it, like, I forgot what it's called, but it's like just dots. You just dot it, right? Yeah. I was like a real hard time in my life when I was in high school. Lost like my first like love to cancer, but I was heavily into this one picture, like his one skateboard that Matt Hemsley, I think was his name. And it's like this kid sitting in front of a window, and it's just like the shadow coming through the window. So here I dot this picture, and dude, it's like this big, dude. It's huge. So dot by dot, it takes me forever to do this, dude. I've been trying to get that picture back. And
who has it?
My mom says that she doesn't know. She like sold it at, oh my god, at like some like a yard sale or something. But
I had
I
had for when I was a kid, and then we'll start the show. We can even leave some of what we just talked about in the show. I don't give a fuck. When I was a kid, I had home movies that like me and my brothers would make in the basement, and then some, like I was like high down here one time, and I was like, man, like you used to pretend you were on a fucking TV studio, and I was like, if you really look at like maybe what made me happy, like when we used to do those home videos, like I loved it. It was such an escape, and like I'd set all this shit up, and I'd tell my brother, we're gonna do like a talk show, and I'm gonna be the host, and you know, he's like, oh, I'll be like this guy, and then we'll start the whole thing, and I'd be like, okay, so you're on here because you're the world's fattest man, and then like, you know, we're like 7, and he's like, and the video's just him trying to fight me. That's hilarious. But then we did all these like skits, and we had costumes, and like, dude, we started like them when we were older, and like we'd go to parties and drink, like we'd start showing them, and everyone would be like, dude, it's Firebox Movies. So this chick. I was always into the troubled goth girls. I think like I went through puberty while watching The Craft, and
Oh Jesus! Oh my God!
So we ended up. I let this girl borrow the tape, and I was like, "Look, I don't got a copy of this. Like, it was just like my parents' camera, and I recorded it on this, and then we had to delete that tape because they needed the tape for a family vacation.
Right.
And then I think she got sent off to like a juvenile home, and her mom like cleaned her fucking room out and threw everything out.
She's seen the witch tape, bro.
Dude, I was,
She was
so
like,
fucking.
this is where it started.
She's like, who's that guy?
This goddamn guy messed up my daughter.
Yeah, so I mean, even the other day, I was thinking, I was like, man, because like I could cut all that down. It's like me as a kid, put that shit'll go fucking. It would do so well on social media, just even from my friends wanting to see it. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, man. Welcome to Never Again Radio. Yeah. We've been bullshitting outside. Cheers, brother. We've been bullshitting outside for well, you brought your car down and were showing me, and then somebody came across the street and was like, dude, it seems like we have a lot in common. I know we have a lot of friends in common, but sure. I kind of want to break down the story of like how you got to where you are today. Now, this all started from well, you do pro build, what is it, mobile repair?
It's a mobile bike shop.
Yeah.
And service center.
But before that, you raced professionally.
No. I never raced professionally.
How dare you? You better get going.
I think you have to win money to be a professional.
Yeah.
Dude. No, I never raced professionally. It was just like more of like a hobby. I'd go out, my buddies. It was more like we used to call them like these like drinking like weekends. So basically just hanging out and partying with your friends, grilling, drinking some beers. We've raced like Cat 1, which is like under the pros. So like you would be the next class of people racing.
Yeah.
But never professionally. So on an average weekend, just like working on your own bike, you start learning a lot of stuff, and basically from racing and just working on my own bikes, got into what I'm doing today. Pretty much is the start.
What was your appeal? Because it's mountain biking, correct?
Right.
Yeah. What was your appeal with mountain biking over anything else?
The bikes are like, all right. So the first time I'm out riding, right? Out riding like a mountain bike trail, right? And we like bump into this dude in the parking lot, and I can't ever forget this day, right? We're like looking at his bike, and we're like, dude, that bike is intense, bro. And he's like, dude, it's coincidence because the name of the bike is Intense. And I was like, for sure, dude.
Is this destiny?
Yeah, and it was just like the all the suspension, and just like, dude, it just looks like you could go do some like real awesome stuff with this thing, right? So it started from there. It basically just clowning around in this one set of woods with a couple of dudes that probably shouldn't even be doing this. I think I was in like my early, like 30, 31 maybe. So like not the period of time you want to start a new hobby, especially one that requires riding bikes in the middle of woods at high speed.
I started mountain biking 3 years ago. A friend of mine, like we went out a couple times, and I was just looking for like I was telling you, my knees are shot, my back's shot, and I was just looking for like a simple thing to go do. So my buddy was like, all right, we can get you into this kind of mountain bike. And I went and got it, and we went once, and I was fucking hooked. And we went the entire summer, 2-3 times a day. We started at Jacobsburg, and I think the furthest Jacobsburg's easy once you've done it a million times. And we hit everything. We found trails. We're kind of making trails. And then I think we went to Nakamixon.
Right.
And then we kind of hit the general area. We always talked about traveling to go do it.
Right.
He went to a couple parks, but we never did. But yeah, it was similar. Like I was just like, man, I wish I would have started this earlier.
That's funny, dude. Jacobsburg was like my first. I used to be a construction worker. I used to be a machine operator, right? And I get laid off from this job, and I had like a nice amount of coin like saved up. And it just so happened I get laid off like right at the end of summer, like perfect time to pick up a new hobby. I didn't know what to do. The one day my buddy was like, hey man, I'm going to go ride my bike out in at Jacobsburg. And I'm like, I think I might have a bike in the basement. You know what I mean? So I like grabbed, dusted.
That's the perfect place to
Yeah.
start, though, with a basement
right.
bike.
Just like dusted off this real like crappy bike, and I went out, and I just remember like it just like was different. Even though we were just at Jacobsburg, it felt like I was like somewhere totally different, and then end up bumping into like a high school homie of mine that's also riding bikes, and we happen to be sitting on what is called a feature. So it's something you would ride your bike over, but we thought it was a bench, so we're sitting on it. And as dude rolls up, he's like, "Hey man, that's a feature." So I'm like, "What the hell?" And I look up and I'm like, "Dude, you gotta be shitting me." And it's like a real close friend of mine from high school.
Yeah.
So dude, this dude's like, "You mountain bike?" And he's like, "You gotta be kidding me, bro. We could have been doing this a long time ago." So like this dude just like opens my life up to this like whole like it's like a lifestyle almost at this point, you know?
Yeah. I went back before I started getting into it. My buddy Natamato, he always had competitive drive, and he always if he got into a hobby that was solo, it was always him competing against himself, and he would always push himself super far. One of my favorite people of all time, and we went a couple times with him, and it was the same thing. I had a basement bike, and then like he started taking to like Naka mixing and stuff, but he'd always be ahead. He'd wait for us, and then slowly he was just going way too much to keep up with, and then he ended up like riding all season and getting into like winter type racing, and like he's committed all in, and like that's what he does besides work is just ride constantly. So to watch the progression where like me and his buddy Josh, which is funny because it was the cousin of the kid upstairs. Yeah. So like, which is funny how it all comes full circle. But myself and Josh were like, damn. So then sometimes we would just go by ourselves because then we're just waiting for each other. And then I loved it. I fell in love with it. It was just something about being in the woods. It was just nature, but then like it was, especially with Jacobsburg, because I try and tell people like Jacobsburg is a perfect place to go because it rewards you for doing anything hard. So if you go uphill, you're going downhill. So it's like, and they have it laid out pretty well where there's the difficulty. You could hit some difficult shit if you do it backwards, but like it's a great place to start out. So then fast forward, I knew I liked it, and then when I got back into it with my buddy, that's when I got a better bike, and like kind of gave up on the whole idea that this is a really good bike, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's okay that it's light. That's from your brother when he was in college. But it turned into one of my favorite things to do, man. I just fell in love with it. And then the more we would go places, just hanging in the parking lot when we were done, and just like kind of accomplishing these rides, and then we'd be like, oh, we should go there next time, and I don't know. And then like you said, I would run into people that I would also see doing it, and then we kind of would have a couple different people going out and going on rides, and it was a really good fucking time. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, for sure. My favorite thing.
Yeah. So how did it transition from you just being like really into the hobby into it turning into a job? Because I know that's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah. The whole getting laid off from your construction job.
And then having the money saved from the job.
So that same year, I decided, hey, man, I'm going to go work at a bike shop not because I was going to start a business, but it was like, I got to have a job. I can't just like sit around and do nothing. So I was like, I'm really interested in bikes. And at that point, almost every bike shop that you would go to, there was a limited amount of things that they were actually able to do in-house. And I learned that while I was working at this bike shop, like anything that had to do with your suspension, or the more like technical aspects of the machine of like say the bike.
Yeah.
They just wouldn't do it in house, so it'd have to go out, and like it would have to the customer would be waiting for it or whatever, as me too, right? So I'm the customer, I'm waiting for it too. So I think what really pushed it was I'm working at this bike shop, and I'm now sponsored by a friend of mine who owns a bike shop. Dude's walking around every time I see him is smiling, walking around in flip-flops all the time. His dog's hanging out in the shop. His life could have been horrible for all I know. You know what I mean? But from the outside, I'm like, damn, dude.
Look at the freedom.
Look at this dude's life right now, dude. Like, I would love to like just come into work in flip-flops, you know?
Yeah.
So Dude, I literally worked at this bike shop for $11 an hour, coming from like a machine operator in like a union job.
That's a lot of money.
You know what I mean?
My brother's in
it's
the
like-
union.
I wasn't in the union though, but I was
Yeah.
at like working at union sites. So
Yeah,
I
it's
was
still,
getting paid.
it's,
You're right.
it's big money.
So I literally, it's crazy, right? Because I'm not looking at the money at this point, right? I'm just like learning. It's like I'm literally paying somebody my other end of my salary to teach me.
Yeah.
And that's how I looked at it. And they also were like promising me to send me to a couple of schools and like, you know, kind of sharpen up my skills really. And they looked at it like, here's this guy, he's a racer, he deals with like full suspension mountain bikes, mostly downhill bikes. We're like a roadie shop. So they were did like a lot of road bikes. They were located right next to one of those rails to trails. So like a lot of their customer base was your mom and pop would come in with their hybrid bike and would need like your basic tunes. So they had me doing like that one and like 30 bikes that would come in. That was like the full suspension downhill bike. They'd have me do it.
You're
right?
like, yes.
Yeah. So then I become this guy. But meanwhile, I'm working in a shop that, dude, they were making $1 million in service. Like, well, $1 million in service and sales, but $1 million a year at a bike shop in service and sales, dude, that's a lot of money, bro.
Yeah. They should have
And-
definitely been paying you more than $11.
Right. So they right. So they got like 4 of us back there. But dude, we're turning out like bikes a week, like a lot of bikes. And so I learned how to be like super fast, super efficient. I guess that's the same thing, right? Just like efficient and kind of like a A to Z type of like work, right? You
Yeah.
start in the front, move it out to the back. And pretty much at that point, somebody had kind of thrown in my ear like, yo, man, you should like open up a shop. And it wasn't really like a shop thing I was trying to do because I worked in retail. Retail sucks.
Yep.
Right? Retail sucks. Restaurants suck.
Yep.
All that type of lifestyle is like, it's hard, man. You know, like you got to be there over the weekends. You're like fully
Holidays.
committed. Yeah, you're committed to that type of life. And so I had an opportunity to get in with some big stores and do some work for them, like building bikes at like say Toys R Us, Walmart's, and all the big stuff. You know what I mean? Like Dick's, all that stuff, right? So we start going around and we start doing that for a while. We're just like driving the van from like spot
Yeah,
to spot.
because that's what I want to get on a second, just because I'm intrigued by it. But
Right.
I mean, you don't realize that somebody has to put all those bikes together.
Dude, sometimes
Because back
it's
in the day,
guy-
like Toys R Us, like that used to be 2 to 3 aisles.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I remember my parents taking us through there and being
Right,
like,
right.
"Oh man, you know,
Right, right.
shopping's totally different now." Back
Right,
then,
right.
it was a lot of fucking bikes, especially Walmart too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you guys were kind of subcontracted to come in, and then you guys would bang these
Right.
bikes out in a specific amount of time and get paid money for it.
Right.
That's a fucking cool hustle.
I mean,
How the fuck do you do that? Like, where do you find that?
Dude, so this is how I found it, right? I was doing something as a favor for somebody, almost like as we were building bikes for like a group of kids or something, right? And some lady comes up to me and she was just like, "Hey, like, do you do this? Do you like go to people's houses and do this?" And I'm like, "Oh, not really. You know, like just doing this as a favor." And she was like, "I'm going to give you my name and my number. I want you to call me." I don't know what I was doing at the point before she seen me, but whatever I was doing impressed the hell out of her, because this lady happened to be a bigwig in, say, one of those big stores. And so a lot of those stores are like owned by the same company. She happened to be a bigwig in one of those big companies. And she was like, "I'm going to set you up and you're going to go do this." She's like, "What do you do for a living?" And I told her, and she was like, "You're not going to do that anymore. You're going to do this now." And basically within a year, coached me to get all my paperwork right, because I was going to be dealing with like, you know, big gigantic stores, had to have all this crazy insurance and stuff.
Yeah.
And it had to be all legit. It couldn't, like, you know, she's like, "You're not dealing, like, no one's going to hand you cash or no one's going to hand you a check. This is going to go into an account, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be dealing with
I
corporations."
call that annoying adulting.
Dude, honestly, they made it like, so if you were an idiot, you could do this.
Yeah.
you know? So basically she was like, you're going to have to jump through all these loopholes and get yourself like all legit, you know?
Yeah.
And then you could come do this. Meanwhile, I'm still racing bikes. I'm still sponsored by companies and I'm still like doing this, like, you know, people would ask me like, hey man, can you get my bike prepped up for this weekend for I got a race? And I would do that. And while I was doing that big store thing, I'm doing that thing at the same time. Well, it gets to a point that it's like, well, dude, what are you going to do now?
Were you burning out at all? Was it getting hard to do everything, or was it not that bad because you love doing it all? And plus, you're coming from the kind of work that you know, that I'm sure that construction union stuff, that's not an easy fucking day. So, I mean, was this hard, or was it just kind of like you were enjoying what you were doing and you kind of had to pick what was paying better at the time, or was it too much to juggle?
It was like trying to do it all at the same time.
Oh, it's so hard.
I honestly, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I was driving my car back after a week of doing all the hustle, like all of it. I had just finished doing a race the weekend before, and it's a race with the team that I just started now at this point. So the weekend before I did this race, I probably didn't sleep a lot leading up to that race, right? So now I go away, it's like a 10-hour drive, 7-hour drive, 6-hour, whatever that, I can't remember exactly what race. So I go away for this weekend. I come back, it's Monday. My week starts off the Mondays. I'm doing the Superstore thing. I'm coming home at night and I'm doing my side hustle, which is the mobile bike shop. I'm doing that at night. So I'm coming home. Sometimes I'm working till like 2 o'clock in the morning. So here's a weekend, right? I lead up into that week. I have like a friend that's camping out at Blue Mountain over the weekend. And he's like, hey man, you should come stop by. I'll be making some burgers, you know what I mean? And come hang out. It's him, his kid, and some other people, right? Stop by there at the end of like, I think I was out there doing like an edit for the mountain. Like we have like a partnership with Blue Mountain, so we do like almost videos to open up their park or like mid-season videos or whatever. So we're out there doing the edit. I spend the rest of the day probably riding the park. I go and hang out with him, dude. By this point, dude, I must have been like, it just exhausted, bro. I have one beer, probably around like 3 o'clock, dude. And we eat. It's probably 7 o'clock at night. Dude, I pass out. And this guy is the type of guy, his kids are in bed 9 o'clock. He's in bed by 9 o'clock. So by 8:30, he's already like rounding up. And I end up passing out on this like steel grate table. All right. Just exhausted. At some point, his compressor runs out of gas. He comes outside. He wakes me up. And he's like, hey, man, you could just come inside of the camper and pass out. And I decide to drive home. Just like 1 o'clock in the morning. So totally exhausted. And driving home, I stop at Wawa. I grab myself a bottle of water and I grab myself like some cookie or something. So like something out of the thing. And from the Wawa on Shainersville Road to Muhlenberg, or what is it, Moravian Hospital? Is that Moravian?
Yeah.
Or Muhlenberg, it's Muhlenberg,
Yeah.
right? There's like 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 lights, right? And then from there to the next light, you're going past that little shopping plaza. It's like probably a quarter of a mile. From that light to the next light, I blacked out. Like I just passed out. All right. And hit a pole. I don't know how fast I was going, but I hit a pole. And they found me in the parking lot. So I hit this pole in the street. The pole went into the street and my truck went into the parking lot. This is my mobile bike shop. Is in the parking lot. I hear people like screaming and stuff. And I think it was like at midnight or something, dude. I don't even remember like the time, but I remember it was like, it happened either before 1 o'clock in the morning or before midnight, right? So cops get there, whatever. You have to do a DUI, obviously, you know, so they do the DUI thing. And I'm just crying, dude. Just like, holy shit. Because I'm looking at my van. My motor's inside of my van. And I'm like, dude, oh my God. And this cop's just like trying to give me a DUI. And I'm like, dude, am I alive right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my wife, dude, that night was like, dude, I got to do something. And I can't do this anymore. And the money was great, man. It's like money coming from like a couple. So like the money from the superstores are like just fueling all this passion, right?
Yeah.
It's fueling my team. It's fueling my mobile bike shop. But it's like, dude, I'm like murdering myself. and I can't really put 100% into the mobile shop because I can't commit to that, right? Because the superstore thing was kind of like one of those, like, I might not work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I might work like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night, nonstop. You know, I might even have to travel out and go to like Pittsburgh for like a week and just stay in a hotel and just work, you know, and do all these different stores, right? And dude, I think it was the stores that was killing me. The depression that you feel inside of those stores, like the people that work there.
Oh yeah.
Something has to be done about that, dude. You
Yeah.
got some miserable people, and I feel bad for them because like here I am, I'm there, and I'm still kind of like living a life, right? But I'm like at that point, I'm trapped in there with you. I'm in the same life that you are, dude. It starts engulfing you, dude. Like you're almost like you start leaving, and like. The one thing that was great about it, every once in a while, I'd walk out and I'd see actually a little kid on a bike that I would just build.
Oh, that's cool.
You know? Or like every once in a while, somebody would be like, dude, can you like go out there and explain to this parent or something? Like those were the cool points. But dude, it barely ever happened, bro. Like, yeah. So
it's very similar to the life of a line cook in a kitchen, where if you got somebody in the kitchen who hates that they're fucking there, or like something at home's fucking everything up, and then they just come into work and they bring their shit into work,
and
they're just like, you're just trying to get through your day, and they're just like, dude, and then it's just every day, and then you come in, and then you start realizing like you just start bitching and complaining because you're just used to somebody bitching and complaining so much, and then it's like somebody bitches and complains so much that you just start bitching and complaining with them, but you're not really like, you're just finding things to bitch and complain about, and then fast forward a year and a half, you're just fucking hate your life because you're fucking around a bunch of people who hate their fucking life. That was a lot of what drove me out of, and it didn't happen in a lot of places. I met a lot of really cool people. My buddy Alessandro, my buddy Billy. You would find awesome people at times that are still good friends of mine now. But you know, you can get. And I mean, I've worked in other jobs where it's like if you're stuck with a bunch of people that don't fucking enjoy their life and they have no hope of being anything other than where they're stuck, like. It sucks, man. There's some people stuck in some fucking jobs that they hate, and it's one of my things with no matter how hard this is and no matter how much work this is, like there's a lot of time. I mean, I said it to you, when we were talking earlier, like, you know, we were driving back from doing a fucking food review, and my buddy's like, I said, is this my job now? And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, is that weird? And I was like, yeah, it is. But then I also know what it took to get here.
Right.
And it's like, you know, sometimes, you know, even hearing your story so far, it's like, man, like, you know, there's a lot more people that need to start fucking getting off their ass and going after what the fuck they want, and they can be a little bit happier in life.
Yeah. I can say I'm lucky because I have an awesome wife. Basically from like day one was pretty much just like, yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
Just do it. You know? I mean, there's a risk, right? To anything, right?
Yeah.
It was like I could, and the crazy thing about it, right, is that, dude, sometimes I feel like I'm in the Matrix, right? Because like, so I pull out of the big store thing, right? And then like, not even a year later, dude, this pandemic thing happens. And all of a sudden, dude, those big stores can't even get bikes in. So it's like, wow. Right now, if I wouldn't have pulled out, like when I did, right? Because I had to establish the business, right? For me to like, I've been in business for 6 years with the whole thing, right? But this part of the business, like doing the, like we're considered like a suspension specialist, right? So we, a majority of our work is we rebuild your bike suspension, which is something that a majority of shops don't do, right? It requires a ton of tooling and it requires some like education, right? So you know, it took a while to establish that, where actually like I'm making a paycheck, right? Because I have to pay myself, right? And I have to like make money to pay bills. So you know, the big store thing was different, dude. I was making like real, like I was making like real money.
Yeah.
You know? It's a different thing. But dude, you're like making real money, but it's like sometimes I couldn't even enjoy it, dude.
Yeah.
You know, you're not enjoying life, and it wasn't even just that, dude. All right, if I tell you that I've probably met 40, 50 different managers, right, that come in super young, and I'm talking about across the board, all these stores, they come in super young, like energized, everything, dude. And I would see him like 4 years later, and it's like not even the same person, dude.
It's dead inside.
Even in the face, in the skin, in the appearance, everything, dude. It's just like total different person, dude. And I feel like it was starting to happen to me being in that environment. And it was a different hustle too, right? Because like every year we would have to do these bids, and all of a sudden I get all business oriented and become this like shrewd, like cutthroat type of dude. And that's not my style, right? So it was hard for me to like indulge into that, you know, like every year having to like do that hustle, like where I'm competing constantly with like competitors and stuff, where now it's more like the work that I do is like I do it, I love doing it, I'm like good at doing it. And I think that's the sell. The sell is that people are like kind of like investing into the whole thing, me, the company, the team. It's like the whole brand, you know? And that took a little while to build, because I mean, we actually used to be called professional builds. We had to drop it because the professional builds thing just seemed like it was great for the superstores, because they knew that they like, so imagine that your bike didn't necessarily get built by me. Your bike might have gotten built by the dude that puts cans in aisle 3, because that's what he had to do that week. So the way that I got into the business was like, hey man, you guys are like, how much of return are you guys getting? Like, you're selling 300 bikes, but if you're getting back 200, what's the point in selling the 300? Because now you have stacks of bikes in the back. So like I was basically going around like cutting down those percentages to like, 20%. So like basically the bikes they were getting back were bikes that like were out of tune at that point, ball tire or whatever, no brakes, or like that type of ordeal. So like our fame kind of like the same way now it's like one manager would leave that store, go to another store, he'd talk about us, and boom, it'd go to another store. But it got to the point where it was like, dude, you're either gonna go so big with it, where it's like people and their lives and their job, like their lives and their homes and their families all depend on you getting this hustle every year, doing this like bid and all that stuff, right? And it's, dude, that's a lot of pressure, man. Like at one point I had like 5 employees, and it was like nauseating, because like sometimes I'd have to make up work. I'd have to make work. I'd be like calling stores like, hey man, like, come like mid-July when they're like, well, we're not selling bikes anymore. We're selling pools now. You want to come put some wheelbarrows, or like you want to come put like baby cribs together, and it's like not paying the same money. And it's like, man, it's like I got these bike mechanics that I trained to do this one thing. So that pressure, man, it's hard when you have employees, man.
It's also hard when you give a shit about your employees.
A lot of them were like my friends.
Yeah,
dude.
that's what I'm saying.
Like my friends, I'm hiring like people I know personally.
Yeah, and then that's a lot to carry, and then you have to figure it all out, and then you're also learning it as you're going, and you're creating this thing, and you're doing all this shit, right. And then to be doing all that different stuff, but you love all of it, and then. Then you got the fucking, the big jobs paying to do all the fun stuff. But then It's like, but then that time eats up into, then how much is the stress and all the bullshit and everything. Right. And then kind of sometimes when you like strip all that shit down, what it comes down to is just kind of like the thing that started everything. And then it's just like, it's the bike.
Right. I mean, with me, it was, dude, it's so crazy, right? And it's not crazy, right? Because even the idea of what I'm doing now was crazy back then, right? If you would have asked me, like, even as I was working the bike shop thing, right? As I was working in the bike shop, you'd be like, yo, dude, if you think that, would you be doing this or whatever? I definitely not, right? Everything that's happened up to this point has been progressively just like growing into a thing, right? I needed to do one thing to do another thing, right?
Yeah.
So with the racing, it became like, like for my race team, for example, right? I have all these awesome sponsors, right? And they've been supporting me for all these years, right? And I'm old at this point, and I'm like racing, but I'm like not even competitive anymore. But dude, I love being out there. I love the setup. I love working on bikes. I love the environment. I love the people. I love the culture. I love all of that, right? So like I have all these sponsors. Like, what do you do with this? Like, you either let it go or you do something with it. But it requires like, like I'm not the type of person I'm just gonna like jump into something. Like, for me to put my name on it, I have to make sure that I'm gonna put 100% into it, and I'm gonna go through with it, right?
It's also hard to walk away from sponsors that helped you out over the years doing everything you'd want to do. And then for you to just be like, yeah, I'm not doing it anymore.
I don't think that they would care. It's like this. I think like literally, I promise you, I was probably like a name at the bottom of a list that they forgot to erase. You know what I mean? And somehow like every year it'd be like, yo,
who's this guy again? Put him on.
Like, it would be like literally like, yo, they're doing it again. So how can I I have this sport, right, that I love, this like thing that I do that I love. Basically, dude, I almost like saved my life, dude. You know what I mean? And not even just saved my life, but like gave me this whole thing, almost to the point like I make money doing it, right? So I didn't want to let go of the sponsors, and I reached out to them and told them I was just like going to start this team, and the team actually kind of is what started pushing the bike shop, the mobile shop, right? Because now I have to like, it's so crazy, man. It's like a snowball effect, right? It's like I have this, I have to start this, and then like as I start doing this one thing, I'm like, man, it'd be cool if we had this van. And then it'd be like, oh, it'd be cool is if I just started my mobile business out of it. And then be like, oh, it'd be cool as if like we did this. You know what I mean? Like, and now I'm back to having a full plate again. But it's all passion. It's all love. And I'm making I'm not making a ton of money. I'm making a living, but dude, I love it.
It's so refreshing to hear. I'm at a very similar stage in everything I'm doing, and like how I was discussing bringing the food back and whatnot. And it's all a fuck ton of work. But the other day I was looking at, and sometimes when I explain it to my friends, because like, they've been watching me go from the beginning of when I was 28 and started it and buying T-shirts, and some of them still buy my shit. And like, they're excited for me. Like a friend of mine, Dustin, messaged me and he's like, I'm too busy now to keep everybody up to date on everything. And I'm like, the studio's moving. The studio's moving? Yeah, man. We're going to bring food in, and I'm going to license the kitchen, and we could do pop-ups and all that shit I've been talking about for the last 5 years I'm doing now. And he's like, fuck yeah, man. But like, sometimes I'll stop and like what you said, I have a very fucking full plate. But for once in my life, it's things that I want on it.
Right.
I don't have... a fucking giant portion of my plate taken from somebody who I have to work for a paycheck to get the other small half of my plate. Like, my plate is a very full plate on like the things that I want to do. And it's like, all right, well, the studio takes up this. And then it's like my apparel stuff takes up this. And now food's going to take a portion up. And I can adjust these things to work. And it's not fucking hard. It's not extremely hard to do it all because I'm in love with doing everything that I'm doing. Yeah. And then even to say that out loud and to hear you having to say it out loud, and like it's cool watching you realize like what the fuck you're doing, because it's like we were talking about it before the show, where people are like, how do you get to where you are? And it's like, it isn't like I can give you a blueprint, but it's these decisions that I had to make in times of what you said, where you're taking a risk and like, making the decision to walk away from something at the correct time, even though it doesn't feel like the correct time, but in your gut, and like my other friend told me too, a lot of advice he gives me is like, go with your gut, man. Your gut's what got you here.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? He's like, when are you ever wrong with your gut? He goes, half the time when we're on the phone and you're saying shit, you're dead on to it. So he's like, listen to your gut. It's 99% going to be correct. Yeah. And sometimes people are too afraid to listen to themselves because they're insecure. They got shit going on in their life, but it's just like, I don't know. I think my friend said it best when I did a pop-up and I sold out, and I was just like, it's crazy I'm still doing this. He goes, Mike, you're not going to stop. He goes, you want it more than others, and it's you can't give that to someone.
Yeah. How awesome are those type of friends, though?
It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna shameless plug here. My buddy who owns A1 Hardscaping, his name is Mark Rutan. So this dude has known me for a pretty long time, and has seen me go through ups and downs and the whole thing. Right, has like watched my company start from where it was to where it's at now. And it's always funny. He's like my biggest fan, dude. So
Yeah.
like, he's like the guy, like on Sunday, he's like, yo, how the guys doing, man? You know what I mean? How's everybody looking? You know what I mean? Like at a race weekend or whatever. But like, dude calls me like 4 or 5 times a week, is always like helping me out with stuff. And it's just funny because he's always like, man, did you ever think, dude? He's like, you're like the phoenix, dude. Like you rose up from crap. And it's like, and it's so crazy because for example, like this weekend, right? I was hesitant about going to this like social event, right? It's like a mountain biking event that a friend of mine has this Facebook group. It's called the Single Track Life, right? And he has a pretty big following on it, and he like just a good group of guys and girls and just people that are into mountain biking and going to the parks and all this stuff, right? So he has this like season opener thing, and I do get a lot of business from, say, that Facebook thing, right? So my wife just thought it would be like a good idea and like, hey man, you should go out there and like, you know, like just like not work this Sunday, or like not go dig trails this Sunday, or not like just go do something that where it's not like here. Go do something like somewhere else, right? And just like reach out, like just, you know, so I go out to this thing and it was just crazy, right? So I see all these customers that I've like, so a lot of my work comes by mail. I don't even meet you, right? I get this thing, it comes to our service shop, I get it, I open it up, I fix it. It's all by like email or by like text. Your stuff is done, everything's great, blah, blah, blah. Here's this bill. They send the bill, boom, it goes out. I never see you again, right? So it was great because I go out to this event and there was like a good amount of people there. I couldn't tell you what the number was, but it was a good amount of people. I get there and there's just like people yelling my name, like, yo, there goes Pro Bills. And it's like, dude, that's sick, dude, you know?
It's weird.
Like,
Isn't it a weird
dude,
thing?
it's like so weird, right? And dude, on top of it too, because I'm out there and I'm like with a group of just like young savages. You know what I'm saying? They're just like these young like shredders. And I'm pretty old, dude. I'm like 45 years old. Like pretty old, right? Like in when we're talking about like this riding thing, I'm 45 is old, especially to be pushing limits. Like sometimes I'm an idiot and I do, but it was just great because I'm like out there and there's like some young kids there and it's just like so crazy, dude. You know, that it's like my brand. It's something I created at like your thing, right? I created it out of nothing. You know?
Yeah, I literally was just having this conversation with somebody. It's so funny how this podcast ended up happening at these times of our lives when we're both at pinnacle points of finding what we want to do for a living and in love. And it's so fortunate because I remember hearing people would be like, oh man, I'm so lucky to be doing this. And then to be able to say that now is so weird for me because it was so hard to get here. It was worth everything to feel how I feel now. But like to get here, the amount of shit that I had to go through, I don't know who would have done that. So I did the pop-up with Finishers, and they fuck with the show. I love Zach, JM. Like, that whole 10th Planet community is so nice to me. You know, I do a little bit of kickboxing. I fucked up my knee getting off the couch, which isn't the coolest story ever. I swear I'll be back soon. So, we went over and Zach has the event, and what Zach's doing now, I watched him grow to that, and these guys are putting this fucking show on, and they got people there, and they can never get food. So I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll do the smash burgers. I don't know what I'm gonna sell. Everybody that came up, yo man, I love this food. I follow your social media. I love your show. They're wearing some people came just from Instagram because they wanted the burger. They had nothing to do with jujitsu.
Dude, I almost left to go get that burger. Dude, I was in the middle of work. I'm like, damn it.
It's worth the drive. But like it was so cool because like I do podcasts. I do a lot of podcasts. What I'm fortunate enough is to meet people like you, and then you build relationships and you run into other people who are working just as hard as you, and that's what I get out of it. And I pay attention to the numbers and stuff like that. But then there's the business talk and a lot of stuff where it's like adulting and things like that. But like I don't really ever get to see what's going on. I don't really like to be the person that is tooting their own horn or shit like that. I've never been that guy. So I'm actually shy when it comes down to anything. So. Which is crazy that I do all this.
Yeah, that's funny, dude. Yeah, I always say I'm like introverted.
Yeah.
Right? And then people are like, yeah, right, you're introverted. I'm like, dude, I am. If I'm being myself, it's because the vibe is correct.
Yeah.
And because there's a correct type of person in the area. You can literally see me 20 minutes later in another group and not be that same person.
Yeah.
It's
bartending pulled me out of it. I don't think if I would have bartended, I don't think like my personality would have popped the way it does. Just because you're forced to talk. You're forced to talk to women. Yeah. You're forced to talk. You know what I mean? Like you're talking to girls. I was never one to be like go up and be like kick game and shit. Then I'm bartending, and then I'm like, oh well. Then I start talking to women. I'm like, well, now I know how to talk to women because it's what I was being paid to do. Right. But it was crazy coming full circle, and these guys being like, yo, we because Zach has a show on here, JM has a show on here, we do a show together, and like we do collab shit, and like so they'll be like, yo, we got into your stuff because we were waiting for the next episode of Zach, and we love what you're doing, and your fucking food's awesome, and like that was the first time that like I just had strangers coming up like, yo man, I follow you on social media, your shit's funny, this food's fucking banging, and I'm like, because in my head that's what I want, but I don't know if all that's gonna work. Like you have a plan in your head, and I'm like, all right, well I'm gonna pull over food over here, and then there's sometimes I'm sitting down here and I'm like, are you fucking crazy, dude? Like, is any of this gonna even work? But it's crazy when like, I mean, that probably felt so awesome when they're like, yo, pro builds.
Yeah, it's weird, bro, to be honest with you.
It's super weird.
Yeah. It's crazy though, because like you could actually go back to like I say our first Instagram or whatever from Pro Builds, or even go a couple of like in, and you could see like how we progressively become better just in general all the way around, right? But like it goes back again, man. It's those relationships, those people that you meet, man. Like my buddy Nick, who does about 70% of our media, right? So this kid basically it wasn't like he was like a camera guy. I think he was like a musician. He was like into music, right? This one day he's like was taking pictures like, yo, Nick, dude, you should like do a little video for me, like at my shop. And like this dude, the production of this video, and I hate to say it now, right? And I hope he never sees this video. It sucked, right? But it's not only the video sucks, right? My whole the whole
everything.
idea.
You don't know what you're doing.
It all sucked, right? But then like you see our stuff now and the stuff that he does, it's like, dude, who are you, bro?
Yeah.
You're not even the same dude. So it like something that even this, I mean, like, I don't think he was ever thinking about like, yo, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to start this like media thing and I'm going to like start doing videos. Like the kid now does like videos for a ton of like breweries and stuff, and all from that one stupid video that another guy, well, actually, Sam at Bond Brewery, he's seen it and he was like, yo, you want to come over and do some like videos over here? And then another brewery, and it's just like crazy now, right? Because like he gets the same thing. It's like, yo, that's the great Nicolini. And it's like, dude, can you believe it that you're like, somebody calls you by your like Instagram handle? Dude, it's hilarious, dude. But it's like, it's cool, man. I feel like for a long time, I didn't trust people, right? So I would never let anybody like close enough to like even remotely bounce ideas, or even like I wouldn't even tell you an idea, right? Because I'd be scared that you like go and steal it or something, or like something like that. And I think just getting older and being more mature and just taking more of like the leap of the business, I think has helped me like leap out with a lot more things. Like when people now are like, hey man, would you be down to do this? I'm like, man, fuck it. Hell yeah, dude. Let's do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like my dad used to always say my dad taught me, there's like a bunch of like one-liners that my dad gave me, right? And there's and I use them all the time. But like my dad would always tell me like, never say no to no job. Never turn down a job, dude, because like you might even learn something while you're doing that job.
Yeah, it's the truth.
You know, like so I mean within limits, right? There's certain things that I can't do, like, but like I don't know, it's just being more. Damn, we only live one time, right? This is like one trip around this thing, right?
And the other thing too is like, it's so funny. There's such similarities. I remember when I started doing this and I would design just even t-shirts, and I would be so like, oh, I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm going to do. And then I would release it and be like, huh? And I was like, all right, well, none of my friends would have stolen the idea and started a clothing company. And I think it was like not having the confidence or the courage to actually show people what like I wanted to actually do. So it's like, and then it becomes frustrating because you can't really be honest with yourself because you're insecure of your ideas, and then you gotta kind of like really force yourself to be out there. I mean, I remember the first couple of t-shirts I made, I was like, you know, you don't know if anyone's gonna like it. Same with food. Like I was so insecure about putting that food out because I quit the food industry and I didn't want to ever do it again. And all my friends would be like, do it. And I'm like, well, if I do it, it's on my terms, which is what I'm talking about now. It's like, cool. If I get high with my friends and we want to sell a chicken sandwich on a Saturday night and make 50 of them, and I want to put $200 in my pocket, I'll post.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, come by. It's only open from 10 till 2 in the morning. We're high as shit. Come buy chicken sandwiches. I don't want to do it any other way anybody else did it because I know where that leads to: burning out, depression, suicide. Fuck all that shit. I've been through it and back, and I ain't going there again. But I don't know, man. It's I forgot where I was going with any of that, but what the hell were we even talking about?
Just jumping.
Oh, the ideas,
ship.
the ideas. So, you know, and then now it's like I don't give a shit what people think about a t-shirt or whatnot, because I've learned that like that whole creative process is why I do it. I do it for the freedom of not being creative, frustrated from my creative outlets and being like, all right, like, you know, now I'm a little bit more open with people where I'll be like, yeah, I'm getting into this project, or if somebody's like, hey, we should collab, I'd love to collab, because collabing there's nothing wrong with collabing. And it's like now I've kind of opened the door up where, you know, even if somebody will hit me up and be like, hey man, like, do you think that maybe you could mention me on your show? And I'll be like, why don't you come on? Why don't you push your business? You know, that's on them to follow through with coming here, but I have no problems with trying to help anybody out. Like me being who I am and doing way more for other people constantly is like, it's from my mom. I feel it's the best, worst quality I've ever gotten from someone. Because sometimes people take advantage of it, but like all that's gotten me is here. Like, you know what I mean? Like being honest, being yourself, being like a total, you know, being like comfortable and creating and like all of me trying to do all this shit. And then finally when like people are starting to see my vision, they're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, that's cool, man. But like, I was so afraid of ever showing that to anyone. Rewind it back to when I was 28. Like, it was a scary time.
Yeah. My mom used to always instill in me that, like, the whole social media thing now, where obviously I'm 45, so this is like a new thing to me, right?
Yeah.
So, but my mom's been telling me for a long time, man. She's like, you gotta keep some of them cards, man. Gotta keep some of them cards low, man. She's like, yo, you might not know it, but there's people watching, and they're watching what you're doing. And sometimes people, they wish like the worst on you. And sometimes that is it's infectious, you know, and it goes out. And she's like, so keep some stuff like, so to be honest with you, dude, I literally, like, when the mobile bike shop came out, people were like, what the hell? Because
when did you officially start doing that 100% mobile bike shop?
I like to say 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was like, we're doing this. This is what we do.
Now, what does that business consist of? So if I need a part or something, you'll come out, or like if I need a bike fixed, you'll come to me. Like if you could explain the entire service of the company, what do you do? Most
communities, right, support their local bike shop, right? So every place has like 2-3 local bike shops, and people are like, they go to that bike shop, they go to this bike shop. My business all started from really obscure jobs. All right. So tricycles, dude, loads of calls for tricycles because they don't fit into doors at bike shops, and they're really heavy and they don't fit in your car. So tricycles, dude, started getting a lot of calls from tricycles. Then I started getting calls from these electric bikes. There's some electric company that's just unloading bikes out in the Lehigh Valley, dude. And somehow they got my information. So they started using us. And then the racing is the suspension thing. From us being at races, people just use this because we're convenient.
Yeah.
So we're local.
And you're part of the community for them.
Yeah, like I said, man, I think a lot of people are like, they're buying into the whole thing, you know? Like, I think they understand that any money that goes into the company, some of it, like my team, it's sponsored, right? But my contribution to the sponsorship costs money, right?
Yeah.
Travel, my time, all that stuff costs money, right? So that's my contribution. Obviously, whatever I'm contributing to the team isn't getting contributed to the company.
Yeah.
So like, you know, it costs money. So I think people understand that like that money is like going towards something, you know, and our scene isn't huge. You know what I mean? It's like almost like family, dude, man. Like everybody is pumped to see, like, season ends and it's like sad time, and then season starts up and everybody's just so stoked. Like the first couple of races, you almost forget that there's like this whole thing going on, you know, like because you're so excited to see people. And you're dealing with like athletes different than my era. So my era, like people were like, "Yo, man, like we're gonna party, we're gonna rage till 2."
Yeah.
And it's like you got to race tomorrow, bro. You know what I'm saying? So like literally, like I had races where I was like 7 deep in one van with a wet dog in the middle of us, dude.
Yeah.
And we partied till like 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And we all did great the next day, but it's different now. It's like more of like a professional like structure, right? So basically, my team is like my R&D department. When I'm out there on the weekend, dude, I got 5 bikes that are getting flung at me all weekend. There is all types of stuff happening to them. Suspensions breaking, bikes are breaking, rims are breaking, everything is breaking. So I learned how to work differently. It's a different method. You almost like start learning how to do things in a whole other method of doing them, you know?
Does that keep your attention as opposed to how it was when you were just building bikes at the fucking
dude,
supermarkets?
it's like, so that's I'm doing as a hobby, right? That's my weekend hobby, right? But like, don't forget, I'm out there promoting the brand. You actually see the dude at work.
Yeah.
So each racetrack that I go to, like right now, we have a couple of elite athletes. You know, we have 2 elite pro men racers.
So are you there because your company's there racing, or are you booking this? Like, are you following the season and going to everything, or like, are you there working because your team's there working and then you pick up work that way? Or are you being booked out from the people that are setting up the races?
No, I wish. I think like getting booked would have required them paying me or something.
Yeah.
So I basically have these 5 athletes. Well, actually, it's like 7 athletes. A few of them ride for my shop to do like more shop promotions, and 5 of them are like kids that are like trying to make it. They're trying to get to that next level. The program that I set up is set up so it gives them the absolute best help to get to that that next level, right? As American athletes, it's kind of hard to get a lot of support from even American brands. Fortunately enough, we have like a bunch of cool sponsors. Like Transition Bikes is an awesome sponsor. Cush Core, Fly Racing, Fox Suspension, Maxxis Tires, like they all pretty much are invested into the program. It's hard to have somebody see your passion, right? But like I feel like I come across pretty easily like that. I don't know if it's just like annoying emails, like constantly just bothering, bickering them, or it's just like they get it, you know? So and that's how I have the team that I have too, right? So I'm out there for the first few seasons and I have more of like an amateur based team, but there's a couple of pros running around that are like, you know, working on their own bikes, blah, blah, blah. And when I show up, it's like I show up, right? My van's there. I have a full pop-up thing. I have like a 30 by 20 pop-up area, full mechanic area, like every single possible tool you could possibly need. I create like an environment, like a professional environment, not only a professional environment, but like kind of like a laid back atmosphere for them too, right? There's like music playing, there's like areas for them to stretch out and to like, what I'm there to do is basically take every single responsibility off your plate, but you going out there and performing. So basically what you've been training to do since whatever time, since the beginning of your training season, I'm there basically to pull all that pressure off your back, and you just got to go there and race. and I do everything else. I get all your sponsorships lined up. I get all your races lined up. I make sure that, you know, your suspension is fresh, and, you know, that we have backup supplies, you know, because that's hard. You know, like something breaks, you got 5 racers and 2 things break, you might not have enough equipment to go in between them. So like, financially though, it's a little bit of a burden. We lost one of our main financial sponsors, so like the gas, all that stuff is like coming out of Pro Build's pocket this year.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a little hard. But dude, I don't. It's like I don't even care. I go out there, and it's the closest thing to like Formula One racing that I could get to. You know, like the whole like pressure, being nervous. Like sometimes I don't even eat. You know, and it's like my wife will even be like, "Man, why do you even do this?" And it's like, dude, I feel like I'm out there with them. And it's an adrenaline that I can't, I can get like 30 jobs in 1 week, and it's not going to put me in that position where I'm at, like at that race weekend. It's just, it's a different pressure. It's almost something I require to like live, to like, you know, like keep the gray hair away, I guess.
Yeah.
Like seriously, dude.
No, I feel like searching after stuff like that is important. And then I feel like sometimes you can find that in a self-destructive way, but when you manifest creating that, and it's in a healthy, positive fashion, and it's something you truly believe in, it feels fucking awesome.
Yeah. So basically, like I said, the team's like an R&D department to my bike shop. So basically, a lot of our clientele are like people that they're, you know, a lot of them are like your weekend warriors, but they want like that. I think they see my racers out there, and they're like, dude, I want my bike to like sound like that and look like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, they associate us with us. It's almost like, I always tell my wife, it's funny because like we're in the process of like moving right now, and in a bigger spot, and there's like this logo, like we have to put out a sign. There's this like logo thing we're talking about, and I've like, so I come up in the car world, right, in the import car world, as you call it, right. So like, I always looked up to shops like Spoon Sports and stuff like that. They're like shops were like super clean. There's like race cars in there.
Yeah.
But like, you don't take your car to get an oil. I mean, you do take your car to get your oil change there, but it's like you take your race bike there, you know, like, and like you care, you know, trying to explain to somebody like, yo, man, you're going down the mountain at like 25 miles an hour. You're literally putting your life at risk on something that you basically look at twice a year. It would be like driving somebody's used race Lamborghini and not even doing like an inspection around it. It's just like, you're just gonna take it out. So like, people associate us with racing and associate us with like the dialing in, like the most like, you know, anyone can do a lot of like put on a tube. Like a lot of people could put on tubes and like adjust your gears and stuff like that. But it's like that fine tuning stuff. I feel like my team helps so much with that, right? And just like outside influences, other mechanics, and I'm like a super geek when it comes to like, I go to races and I don't even go there for the racers. I like hang around the pits and like watch the mechanics. Like, yo, what's up, dude? Like I'm not DMing chicks at night. I'm like DMing mechanics at night. Like, yo, bro. Yo, I seen that foam thing, that foam cutout thing. Yo, what company is that, bro? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a different thing. Like, I found my niche. You know, like the thing I geek out about is that, like, got this like super dope like tool set. You know, it's like super, like people come out and they take pictures of it, and I geek out because I see my like toolbox. It's like not me, it's my toolbox, but it's like in a like, we have like 2 major like media things, right, for mountain biking, for my type of mountain bike, and one's like Vital MTB and the other one's like Pink Bike, right? But I see my toolbox and Pink Bike and I'm like, hell yeah, dude. You know what I mean? Like, so this whole time, I like, when I was younger, I was like trying to get sponsored with my car thing. It's like almost nearly impossible to get sponsored with a car, right? Your car has to be like $100,000 into it before anybody wants to even invest any money into it. And here it's like, yo, dude, I'm like sponsored, bro. It's like, I don't know. It's like kind of dorky, but cool.
No, I think it's awesome. What's it feel like to be able to have you looked in that light?
It's like weird, man. You know what I mean? Like, you always wonder, like, right, do you make a difference in anybody's life? Or, like, you know, like, do you feel like you're doing, like, good things out there? Like, do you feel like you're, like, my biggest thing, right, is, like, this sport gave me, like, so much, right, that, you know, like, I got, like, this awesome, like, mobile bike shop business out of it, right? And it's super successful, right? And I got this awesome wife that I met through mountain biking. I have all these like awesome like friends all over the world, dude. You know what I mean? Like all from this like 2 wheels. So weird, right? I go on a bike ride to Jacobsburg as like a something to kill my time that one day.
Yeah.
And it turns into me being at a podcast
Yeah.
in Nazareth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Which is like 5 minutes from Jacobsburg.
right. So it's like full circle, right? Are we like in the Matrix? Are we not in the
Yeah.
Matrix?
It feels
You
weird
know?
sometimes, man.
It's super weird, dude.
I talk about, you know, even like how all this thing started. It's like I was in this fucked up point in my life and I quit drinking beer and or just I quit everything. I was sober for 10 years and I look at like that decision that day. Like I woke up hungover a million fucking times. I woke up hungover, hating my life, not remembering anything. I did dumb shit, but I was never the guy who wrecked stuff. I was always the funny guy, which made it harder to stop because everyone was like, it's totally fine what you did. That was so funny.
Right.
And then I remember I woke up one day and I called my parents and I was like, hey, I think I'm done with like a lot of this shit. And I was like, I'm just sick and tired of saying I'm going to do shit and not doing it. I always wanted to do stuff. I always saw things the way other people didn't, but I never finished it because I was hungover. I was too preoccupied with getting fucked up. Yeah. But I was the one putting the creative fun shit together. Like, let's do bar Olympics. What's you know what I mean? Like, so like I'm gonna make a mix CD, and then like when it starts, you got to come down the steps. We're gonna light a candle, and you got to carry a flag like the Olympics. Like, you know what I mean? And then it's like when I decided to like stop and like do this thing, like that was just a decision I made that completely like rippled my entire life to the point of like in that 10 years it's like I grew up, I learned how to be responsible, I started paying my bills on time, I did all this shit up until now, and it's like now it's like I have balance, and it's like and then I never thought I would decide to start getting fucked up again, and then it's like then it didn't really affect my life because I grew the fuck up, which was what I wanted to find. But it's like that whole time, like I didn't know that like when I woke up hungover on the floor of that apartment and I would like that decision that day would fucking take me all the way here to interviewing you.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I look back and it's just like, it's fucking weird. It fucking trips in my head sometimes. Cause sometimes when I'm like down or something, like I'll walk around down here and I'll just like look at all this stuff, and most of the stuff that I have chosen to be out are like things in pinnacle points in time, or how far the business came, or like how that blue shirt over there is like the first design ever to be was, and like it's come so far where like now it's its own thing, but the story, it's become bigger than the story now. And it's like, because everything in real time is so much bigger than what it, because it used to just be, I quit drinking. And then like, that was the catalyst. But I never wanted that to be the story. That was never the story. Yeah. And then now it's like, every week that I'm trying to push this, it's like, oh, what's he doing now? And it's it's fucking weird, man. It's like living in a fucking, it's like being, at a point in a book where it's like, like things are cool. I'm not used to this. I'm used to fucking my day sucking and eating piles of shit and failing nonstop. And it's like, it's a weird fucking time. It's weird because I never thought I would be here. I always knew I would work hard. I just figured it was just more work. It was always more work, and it's more work now, but it's, like what you were saying earlier, like, where I put 100% focus on this. I left the post office, which was crazy to do because it was great money and fucking, all the other things that they lie to you about the post office. But like, when I went in this lane, that's when it felt correct. Not when I was working 9 fucking jobs and everything else. Like you said, pro builds wouldn't be pro builds until you were just doing pro builds.
Right. It would have been still professional builds.
Yeah.
Actually, I got to tell you, bro, the year that there was a year that we were doing both hard. That's the year I get in a car accident, right? At that point, we're already wearing pro build shirts. So there would be jobs where like, there would be a manager who'd be like, I need you to come out here this day, and be like, hey man, I can't. You know, like I got this other thing going on. And then, you know, the van started going to the job sites and people started noticing the van because I had to take some work was like getting picked up or dropped off midway. And the managers started like, hey, man, what's going on with that? And I was like, well, you know, I got this, you know, I'm doing this other thing also, you know. And
do you remember those times when it'd be weird to tell someone what you were doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like someone would be like, what are you doing with that podcast? Whatever.
Dude, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you that. I mean, I guess I don't think like nobody ever said anything to me, right? It's more like me being scared to say like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to do this and like, just because like, so like the whole Mark Echo thing we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
right? When I said I could have been Mark Echo, right? I could have been that dude. But I had teachers telling me, dude, graffiti? Really? Dude, no one's going to buy a shirt with graffiti on it. And you're never going to do that. It's impossible. And dude, I actually like bought into all that bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of like, you know, just like a lot of like stuff that people like, you know, I was into skateboarding like before it became like the big multi-million-dollar thing, right? And I could have stuck with that and I could have did something with that, but like people are like, it's different now. You could do anything now.
Yeah.
You could do absolutely anything now. You know, like
you can make a movie with your phone.
right, dude. What I'm doing now, I mean, I'm not the first dude to have a mobile bike shop. I am the first guy to have a mobile bike shop in the Lehigh Valley, though.
Yeah.
You know, even though there is one guy running around claiming that he was the first one. The dude's in Berks County. He's not even the Lehigh. You know what I mean?
I own a globe, sir.
Right. So yeah. But anyways, you know, we're the first mobile bike shop in the Lehigh Valley. We're the first mobile bike shop to sell legitimate bike brands. And I think that's in the nation. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where like everything just so happened, it like changed right in the correct time, right? Where like just so happens that like, you know, the social distancing, shops closing and stuff like that worked out for me, right? Because my service center wasn't really like eye appeasing. It's a shop, you know, there's like a small area for bikes, mostly for like our demo bikes, but it's like, it's just a brick building. It's nothing special. You know, that it was something that I was like thinking about, like, you know, like when you think about like Spoon Sports, I got that dope spot in Japan, you know, like you walk up and the first front window that you see is a dude rebuilding your motor. It's like literally like watching a guy making hot dogs, except he's actually building a fucking motor, dude. You know, and it's your motor and you're paying like a lot of money for it. And there's like a high-end tech working on it. And it's kind of like the idea that I was like, I want to do that. I want my shop to be able to, like, when you like you could walk up to it and see there's a dude in there doing like real technical stuff, or at least like I like to pretend that it's like super technical stuff, right? But like, and have like a couple of race bikes there that are getting prepped up for the week, and some of my guys' race bikes and some like demo bikes, and just like something a little bit more appeasing. The van is the van, right? The van is like the van. And everybody wants to see the van. Everybody wants to see the van roll up at the driveway. So, you know, like it's all like plays off of itself, you know, like it's like you doing the pop-up thing, you know.
Yeah,
like the van's one thing, the service center is another thing, and now we're like gonna do this other thing, you know. And it's like kind of one of those things where like I kind of like keep it like, you know, keep that one in the back for a little bit. And I usually don't, I like, because I'm like the type of person, like, you know, the shop didn't come out until the shop was like the mobile shop, until the mobile shop was like done, and it had to be done like properly. Like I needed the right van, I needed the right carpentry done, which I take credit. I don't take credit. People are like, yo, did you do that? And it's like, yeah, right, dude. My dad, who's basically like Jesus Christ, you know what I'm saying? Like, dude could build a car out of wood and make it run on sawdust. Like he did that, the whole, like,
what a cool project to work on with him, though.
Dude, I'd love to say I was able to do it, but I was so busy at that point with the both things that like he ended up doing that by himself. So it was like not even a project that I could even do with my dad. That's how busy I was.
Yeah.
But like,
I have stuff down here that my dad helped me with, and then he took over. But that's how it always been with me, where I was never good at building shit and whatnot. So like,
right.
you know, when he came down and like he helped me build this out, and then like he did primarily all of it. But like from him doing that, like we never really got along, and we never knew how to communicate, and we always butted heads, and we started working on this, and we started getting into it, and we started screaming at each other, and then he looks at me and he goes, I don't want to be fucking mad at you, and I go, well, I don't want to be mad at you, and then we're just sitting there, and I go, well, what do we fucking do now? And he goes, I don't know. And then like from that entire experience, I now can communicate with my father, because it was the first time we both admitted, because we're so fucking thick-headed, and like we both admitted that, like, look, man, I don't want to fight with you, but like I'm also gonna tell you to fuck off. And then he's like, I don't want to fight with you, but I'm also going to tell you to fuck off. But like from that came this moment where like it's almost bittersweet now, because like he's getting up there in age, he can't do the shit he did before, and it's like so like there was two projects. There was that and the stand over there, and when he put the stand together, I didn't have time to do it, and then like he knows I'm busy, but now he believes in me. So like the fact that he built that out, he wasn't building it out because Michael's fucking lazy and he's so dumb and all, you know, all the shit I used to make up in my head. He built that because he knows it's going to help me out, and I'm too busy to be there. So like when he brought it down here, it was like this cool fucking moment where I was like, cool, man, like thank you for doing this. I legitimately do not have time, and but I was like, look, I don't want to buy a fucking TV stand. I'm like, we're only gonna be down here for like another fucking year. When it moves, we're not gonna use it. I got these old boards. Can we just fucking build something out? I'm like, you're the one who tells me to save money. And then he was like, you're right. And I was like, cool, let's do it. But like, even the fact that you didn't have time to do that with your dad, I'm sure that was fucking awesome when he showed you the finished piece.
Well, I was there for like, he would call me up. He'd be like, hey man, we gotta pull the one cabinet in and measure it. So I'd go in there and he'd do his like little cutouts and stuff, and you know, we'd pull it out, and then I'd go back to work. But like when I say like the Matrix thing, right? So my dad, one of his first jobs in America was he was always he was like a garçon when he was in Europe, right? As a young man, it was like a pretty important job out there. Like you run a restaurant, pretty much like a restaurant manager almost, right? So he comes to America, he's like a carpenter, blah blah blah, and he picks up a job at his buddy's body shop doing work for Coachworks for Chevys. So Chevy's sending their vans over there, and they're like doing all this like woodwork inside of it. And how crazy is it that like 40 years or 30 years later, dude, he's like doing the same exact job in my van and taking that experience from that one job.
Yeah.
So like my dad's saying like, you know, never say no to a job, right?
Yeah.
So my dad was just a carpenter, and he was like, hey man, just come over here and help the main designer guy, the main guy that's doing it, just help him out. And then while he was doing it, he learned how to do it. So my van, even though it wasn't meant, like when you go and buy these like converted vans, they're like clip-in parts and stuff like that. My van's like literally built like it was like a house.
Yeah.
Like they would do it back then, right? So like stuff is drilled into the frame and stuff. But like if I wouldn't have had him, dude, the van wouldn't look the way it does.
Yeah.
You know, like, and the appeal of the whole van, it's like I open the van and people are just like, what the hell, dude? You know, it's like all like cedar and stuff. It's all beautiful, raw.
It's cool to have those moments. I mean, I get to live it every time anyone comes down here. This is a bunch of my friends who believe in what I'm doing. My buddy Jer and all these guys, and my buddy Muma that passed. He used to help out with the audio, and you know, this looks all specific way from a bunch of people who give a shit about what I'm doing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like this used to just be art everywhere and was all fucked up. And then my friend Kara was going through a fucking shitty time, and I could tell she needed an outlet, and she was frustrated. And she used to do interior design. And then I was like, the one day we were down here just drinking beers and smoking, and I'm like, let's fucking stop making this look like a frat house. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? So I just start fucking go. And she's like, okay. And then like we went through, picked all the art, but that's why this aesthetically looks pleasing to be at this correct levels.
Another person did.
Yeah, because another person was like, hey, I this is what I learned, and this is what you learn with it. Because I'd be like, let's just hang something there. And she's like, you do not have to fill every piece of the wall up. Where like, you know, I'm so used to being like, more art, more walls, more shit. And then, you know, it's a cool vibe, but this is different. And I mean, and even when we move and go into the next spot, it's like, you know, I had a conversation with like a bunch of people that like I artistically and creatively like I love the things that they're into, and like I grabbed a bunch of them and was like, hey man, like when we design this, I'd really like your input on it. I would like to know what you would think, and then everybody is going to come through. I'm like, look, what I want to do, I believe no one else is doing, especially around here. Maybe out in LA, fucking Roy Choi or Action Bronson's doing this shit, but no one's doing that in this dumb little town.
Right.
So let's blow the fucking gates out, man. Let's do something really fucking cool. And it's fun taking other people who have fucking, skill sets that I'll never be able to do and get to live through their eyes for a little bit and watch them fucking build stuff. That's fucking dope that you got to do that with your dad.
Yeah. The one guy, my one buddy who's helping me with the new building, right? He works for Human Creative, and so he like invites us to go to his house on this one weekend. And I was going there. I was gonna go work on.
Oh my god!
I was gonna go work on his. I think I was building a new bike for him.
Yeah.
And I was gonna go work on his wife's bike, and then just stay there for the weekend and stuff like that. We were gonna sleep in our van. We were like stoked about it.
Yeah.
But like right down, they literally live a block away from the beach. We're just parking in their driveway.
Awesome.
So any excuse to sleep in a van is great, right? They made us sleep inside of the house though.
You're like, fuck.
Yeah. So we're hanging out with them, and I'm like walking around his house. I'm like, dude, Rob. Dude, who does your decorating? He's like, man, you know that's me. Because, dude, his bike shop, when you went to his bike shop in Philly, it was in the middle. I think it was South 3rd. It was by South Street, right? So I think it was 4th Street. It was by South Street. Like literally in the middle of it, right? In the neck of it. And you felt like you were at a beach. You know what I mean? Like it had like all this like, like the pallets, you do the pallet boards, like you have an entrance, like the whole shop was done like that, like, and it was like the name of his shop was like Community Bikes and Boards. They had like surfboards and like longboards in the middle of Philly, dude. Like who surfs in Philly? But the vibe was like so sick, and dude, he sold all that stuff. He would sell surfboards, he'd sell paddleboards, all that stuff. It's like who's buying surfboards, dude? But like he was opening this like. I could promise you by the end of it, there was probably like 50, 60 paddleboards running around Philly on the river, right? Because he was like opening, like creating this like market, creating this like thing. And that's the dude I told you that used to walk around in flip-flops. And I was like, there's only a couple of people that I look up to, like business-wise and like hustle-wise, right? My dad's one of them. My dad's a hustler, dude. Day one, that dude has not stopped hustling since he's put foot in America, dude. At one point was living in a house in $1 million neighborhood. And I could promise you that 90% of the people that lived around there was like, I swear their landscaper lives there. Do you know what I'm saying? So my dad's like this little short Portuguese looking dude. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't have like expensive things. Like he bought his red Toyota truck because he loves Benfica soccer team. So he had to get this big, gigantic, obnoxious red truck. Right. So like the dude hustled, bro. Like came over here with absolutely zero, with zilch, bro. Hustled. My friend Rob, who, like I said, couldn't tell you if he was doing good or bad in life, dude. Always seemed like he was living his best life, no matter what he was doing. I've never seen that dude in a bad mood. You know what I mean? Like my boy Mark, like people like that, like literally started stuff. My boy Nick, same thing. Started something from nothing, just like ran with it. And it's the same people that like I always see like, yo man, how'd you get this going? And it's like, I don't know, dude. Like you can ask me how I got this going. I can't tell you how I got it going.
Yeah.
I was doing one thing and then I was like, man, I think I need to start doing this other thing because it might help this other thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you're doing that thing. You're like, man, you know what? I should start doing this third thing. So this third thing may help out the two things. And then next thing you know, you're like doing this whole, you're doing stuff that you never thought. Like if somebody was to be like, hey man, you should start doing this tomorrow, and be like, fuck, dude, how do I start doing this? Like, if somebody was like, man, you should build a mobile bike shop or like start this like thing, like how do you do it? Like, what do you do? Right? Like there's actually a company that you could actually just go buy a franchise. Like you just pay $100,000 and they give you the van and all that. But like, that wasn't even like, I don't have $100,000. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like all these like ideas, like you said, man, when I was growing up, I had all these ideas of stuff I wanted to do, but it like all required so much money. The fact that I'm at where I'm at now and I started with nothing, dude. Actually, dude, the point that my wife met me, and I'm not even embarrassed to say this, dude, I was living in my dad's garage. My dad had a garage behind his restaurant, and I was living there.
Yeah, but see, I've done a ton of that where I stayed at places and everyone was always like, what do you keep doing that for? And I was like, yeah. I said, you know those badass movies where it's like John Wick or fucking something Fast and Furious or something like that. I said, it always starts off with some dude sleeping in some weird loft or some garage on a couch, but the setup's dope and he's banging some hot chick.
Oh, it's not a dope setup, dude.
No, neither of any of mine, but I'm saying in the movie life, you know, what they sell you is like this guy's just down on his luck and he's living in the garage and whatnot, but he's making it work. You know, like I think it was like the beginning of Transformers or something. And I'd always say to someone, I'd be like, that's where I'm fucking at. And I said, do you know what happens to that dude at the end of the movie? Always good stuff.
Isn't he with Megan Fox?
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I kind of like, I used to be like, I stayed at my parents' house for a very long time. And then I realized that like what I got out of that was that I have a relationship with my parents that I wouldn't have if I would have gotten married and didn't have kids. I'm so tight with my parents right now. I talk to my mom almost every night. We were talking about watching fucking what I'm like, hey, there's this new murder show on. Like my brothers talk to my mom, but they're preoccupied with their life. My life turned into that my parents were a part of my life this entire time. And then I just stopped looking at shit differently like that. And I think it just comes with age and looking at like, you know, like I didn't look at what it was at the time, but it's sacrifice, man. Like it's like I want my things, so I can't have a mortgage, a wife and kids and do all this shit. My buddy's kid, I was at a party and his kid goes, you gonna have any kids, man? I said, Aiden, I go, if I would have had any kids, I said I wouldn't be doing any of this because I would have raised kids. You know what I mean? But that I would have put all of what you see here and all this shit would have just went into raising somebody. You know what I mean? I would have been working some shitty jobs so that they could have better things in life. So I don't know, but like, you know, living in a garage, it ain't a bad thing, man. That the best stories start that way. And I look at it that too, where I'm like, fuck that.
I think my dad felt worse for my pit bull. Because the dog was
He's like, look, the dog could come inside.
There was literally enough space for like just one human to sleep where I was sleeping, and my dog was sleeping there with me. And my dad, I just remember my dad, like the embarrassment in his face. And maybe not even embarrassment, but I think he was just like, dude, what the hell are you doing? It's just like went through like a real bad separation, kids, all that stuff. Just like was at like the bottom of everything, dude, like at the lowest point I could possibly be. And I don't know how I got into bikes or how I got back into bikes. So when I was a kid, everybody rides bikes when they're a kid, right? I don't know how I got back into it or whatever got me back into it, or maybe bumping into my friend at Jacobsburg, but something from that point changed. I mean, I still carried a lot of like stuff with me, you know, like even to today, I have to watch how I interact with people. I grew up in like pretty rough neighborhood, you know what I mean? And I was taught a lot of like nonsense stuff when I was a kid. A lot of stuff about respect and stuff like that, and just things that you hold on to that, you know, don't necessarily like really translate into a real life, into normal life, and like what we would call squares. You know, we would call people like squares, man. Like that dude's a square. Like we were living a different type of life, you know. But with that comes, you know, end results. You know, like your life is what it is when you get to a point, you know. So it's kind of just like one of those things. Like my dad, all the talks that my dad had with me, all the yelling, all that stuff, right? So my dad used to always be like, you can't just do nothing, dude. You know what I mean? You got to do something, bro, because one day life's going to catch up to you. And I used to always tell my dad, man, one day I'm just going to do something, and it's just going to happen when it happens. So I think like that was like my dad's pinnacle of being like, yo, everything I've ever told you came down to this point. But I think like it took to get there to get here, which is funny because like now my dad's like, you know, working on my van and like rides bikes. I'm buying him bikes and stuff. Now he rides bikes. Like, you know, like it's like a whole ordeal. He's like so invested into like me, into like my business, and like holy shit, this dude wasn't bullshitting. He was really going to do whatever the hell he wanted. And one day just be like, I'm going to do this now.
it's weird when those moments come full circle, and like it's got to feel good for you to have been through everything you've been through and then to build this from nothing, which, you know, I know personally that is one of the hardest things to do, is to take nothing and then give yourself a fucking paycheck.
Right.
So I mean, for you to have had all that and then to go through that, but then to have it full circle where you and your father are riding bikes together, and you know, I mean, I related to a lot of shit you said, man. I remember, man, I would get into these. I was fucked up as a kid, man. I got into a lot of trouble, and like my parents never gave up, and I was fucked up on drugs for a while. My mom never gave up on me. Always looked for different fucking things, and you know, there's some conversations that still haunt me where she's like, one day you'll lose sleep over this. You know what I mean, and shit like that. But it's like our relationship now, I believe, is like they just wanted me to be happy, and like when it came to a point where they realized that I was just struggling so hard to be happy because I just wanted this life. I wanted to be happy all the time. I don't want to be happy before work and then only after work, and then I'm at this fucking job, and you know, a lot of it was probably like me just being pissed off because it was shit that they said was true. Like I shouldn't have fucked off in school, and you know what I mean. And like now I am stuck at this fucking job, and then life does catch up with you pretty fast, and then you're out of you're in your late 20s, and you're still getting fucked up at the bar all the time, and now you're just the older dude who's drunk, and you know it's fucked up, man. But I mean, hats off to you for doing everything you've done up until now. I mean, just from the little bits I've heard of what you went through and everything, and building this out of nothing, and then taking on 3 to 5 fucking jobs, and then now coming back to this. And I think there's so many cool parts to this where I love that you're creating your shop through other visions that you see through, like, you know, with the whole thing you were talking about with the Japan thing. Like, I love taking stuff that like super creative people are doing and bringing it to the valley and being like, why do I gotta, you know, I don't gotta be in LA to do all this stuff. I don't gotta be in, you know what I mean? It's like, it was pretty remarkable, the story. You've been one of my favorite guests just because we didn't stop talking since outside all the way here. And you're the first guest where I'm going to leave the first 5 minutes of bullshitting before, because I was like, wait, this is really good. And it, like, what's funny is this interview will end up changing the format of the show, because the first 5 minutes we were just talking, and then I'm like, this is the show. I'm like, this is how the show needs to start. Because normally I'm like, hey, welcome to Never Again. But I was like, it was so relaxed, and it's been a pleasure hearing your story. If I don't end this, both of us will probably piss our pants. But I want to give you a chance to plug everything you do. And this will definitely be, you'll come on multiple times. There's so much that we could do, and I know you're busy, and I want to get out and see your setup and film some stuff and work on some projects. I can't wait to text Eric and even thank him for setting this up. That dude's awesome. I bring him in once a month now and just let him go.
Dude, that dude is just the story of that dude, right? I come walking into his office, right? And this is the accident, dude.
All right. Yeah. So you have him as a lawyer.
So, dude, the city wants their money for, not the city, the whatever.
Township?
People want money for the poll. And the cops basically... So the cops basically came out that day to give a DUI out, dude. They didn't get their DUI. They were mad about it. So they gave me all these, like, they were ruthless on me, bro. They gave me, like, these tickets. I was going to lose my license and everything. So I'm at a diner. I'm at Roasted in Bethlehem, all right? And I'm, like, talking to the owner, and she's like, blah, blah, blah. I always, like, talk to the owner just about bullshit, right? You know, she's just, like... I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm like, oh, I hadn't been there in a while. And she was like, oh, what's up? And I think I had a sling on or something. I forgot what it was. But the conversation about the accident came up. And I was like, yo, I got in this accident. Like, I might be losing my license. She's like, yo, you got to hit up my boy, Eric. He's like the licensed lawyer, dude. So I don't even know that he's a criminal lawyer or anything, right? Come rolling up into this dude's shop. And the first thing I noticed is he has a diesel motor cut in half. And it's a table. It's like the table in his front room, in his foyer, and like like the office or whatever, is like a diesel motor cut in half. And I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. And I see this dude walk in and kind of like looks over at me, and he like walks into the room where like his 2 secretaries are, comes walking back out, like looks at me, comes walking back out. He's like, hey man, you can come in. He like walked up, greeted himself. It's like walking, as we're walking back into his office, he's like looking at my jacket. He's like, what do you race? You know what I mean? Because I'm wearing like a fly racing jacket. And he's like, oh, what do you race? And I like didn't even know how to take that. I was just like, oh, I don't race anything. Like I have a team that races bikes. So he starts, goes into like, oh man, pretty, like I think he asked me a couple of questions about it. It was like real brief. Then he goes into the whole thing of the accident starts talking to me like, oh, don't worry about it, I'm gonna take care of you, this and that, and then basically just dumps that and starts asking me about like the team and like, yeah, this sounds really interesting. He's like, is that your van out there? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, that van's sick. He's like, I'm thinking about going mobile too, dude. And he's like, I've wanted to open up a mobile, I think he was like talking about opening up a mobile bike shop like years ago.
Yeah.
And he's like talking about these, like, it's so crazy. I see you here. It's like, you know, it's like meant to be or whatever. And I start talking about my team and like, just like, he's like asking me about the team and he's like, yo, man, you need somebody to sponsor your team? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, what do you mean sponsor? He's like, man, I'll give you some cash or something, dude. And I was like, hell yeah, dude. And that's how I started my relationship with the dude.
That was the first thing he said to me when he came down the door. A friend of mine works with him because he's Jesse who does the sound. He couldn't be here Monday nights. He works a double. So he was like, hey, I got this fucking guy, Eric. He's like, why don't you bring him on? I'm like, I would love to interview a lawyer. And he's like, he's awesome. And Eric comes down, he looks around, he just goes, this is so fucking cool. He goes, I'll sponsor your show. And I go,
Nice, yeah,
I go, what? Because like normally I got to like wait and feel people out. And then like you just see if they're the right fit. And then if it's like somebody who needs more help with advertising than anything, that's usually the way to go.
Right.
But then there's people that like don't need to sponsor the show, but you can see relationships, and it's like it's a very like internal process that I feel out, and then it's just awkward to ask people for money. I don't ever get anyone who just walks down here and they're like, I'll give you money, kid.
Yeah, dude, I get more questions probably about my team than I do about my business, right? Because everybody's like, yeah, man, it looks like great. It's like because they see me in these like media things, like these media outlets, and it's like, you're a professional, you almost like work your whole life to like get a paycheck and then that, right? To be recognized. So like, yo, how do you do this team thing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, dude, it's like, I'm a professional beggar, bro.
Yeah.
Right? If you have pride, if you have any pride or like self-respect, dude, this is not the gig for you, dude, because like, I got to tell you, bro, and you have to have a little bit of like, gotta have some tough skin, bro, because people are gonna say stuff to you they don't want to hear.
Oh yeah,
like they don't believe in your program, they don't believe in you, they start
questioning what took you months to build up as your pitch.
Right. You know, like stuff like that, and then you meet somebody like Eric who's just like, dude, I feel like I meet people like that, and it's like a kindred thing. Like he's passionate. I'm passionate.
Yeah, and then he's into like and as soon as I had him on, because I would have done the same thing even if he didn't sponsor the show, but I was like, the show was over, and it was like this show where I was like, man, this is exactly what I want this show to be, a conversation. So like, when I have the opportunity to kind of sit back and somebody has such an interesting story to like you're just like, all right. Like Eric's story is totally insane.
Yeah.
And then like
he just comes off like crazy, dude.
And then he's like, yeah, so I was living in this country and I was a lawyer there. And then he changes the subject and I'm like, hey, can we go back to the fact that you were in this country being a lawyer? What are you talking about? But he told this story about, it was like, and it's on the episode 1, and it's go fucking back and listen to the Eric Dowdle fucking podcast, because it's some of the best shit that came out of here. I don't just bring people back on because I don't have time to book people. Like I bring people back on because it's a good fucking show. So if you see somebody twice, go back and fucking listen to the first one. But I let him go, and then I was like, dude, do you want to come down here once a month on Saturdays, and like I'll make us breakfast sandwiches and we can get a pot of coffee and we'll just get into this shit. So he brought my friend Stacy down, who works with her, and like we just started bullshitting about cars. And like we did for the first 25 minutes, it's just us talking about fucking cars, and he's going back and forth, and then I let him go. I was like, "You're cool."
That one,
I was like, "Just talk about cars, man." Eric is one of the best guests that I've ever had on the fucking show, and like
the fact that you could get him even to sit down for 45 minutes anyway.
Yeah. So but see, the thing is, he wants to do super early podcasts, but he's friends with Jesse, so like Jesse respects him, and Jesse will do things for Eric. So like, Jesse we got up at dude, it's Saturday morning. We're up at was up at like 6:30 because I got to make sandwiches and shit. I don't do that for anybody. Like Eric's the fucking man.
No,
like
he's the dude.
The fact that it's funny that he did that for you too, but he just walked through the door and like, I need sponsors, man. Like I need things to like.
That's what he said to me. He's
they
like,
pay the bills.
Sponsors?
Yeah.
Like, don't you need sponsors? And it was real weird because it's the end of the conversation. I'm there on a business thing, right? And we're like transferring money and stuff. And he's like, yo, and back to this sponsorship thing. He's like, I'm not bullshitting you.
Yeah,
Yo, call
he did
me on
that to me
Thursday.
too.
And I was just, well, dude, because I talk about that a lot, like that Hollywood talk. Like, I'm the type of person, if I invite you to my house or invite you to a ride or if I say something to you, dude, you hold me to that.
Yeah.
Because I mean that. So you meet people all the time. They're like, yo, man, I want to do something for you. And then when you talk to them, it's different. And like meeting people like Eric, like, Eric hit me up after he left the studio here when he did that first podcast.
Well, he said
He's
that
like,
too.
"Yo."
He goes, I think I got you some guests.
Yeah.
And then like,
yo, I got this dude, man. You got to go do this podcast, bro.
but that's awesome though, because he suggested you and somebody else, and they were both solid leads. Because I have people will be like, hey, it'd be good if you had my friend who's like a kickball instructor, and like, great, that's cool and everything. But sometimes it's like not the right fit for the show, or the show is so fucking it's moving.
Right.
We're doing, I'm doing fucking 3 to 5 podcasts a week coming out of here, and that's like 3 on the low. You know what I mean? Like then there's other people that I produce their shows, so it's like sometimes it's like it's not that I don't want to do your podcast. It's like I have to make decisions on podcasts now based on like how many I have to actually do. It's like, you know what I mean? But like he would like I was like he's like called me. He's like, I got this guy, and he's like, got this pro racing thing, and I'm like, that sounds fucking awesome. I'm like, I'll call him, and he's like, you call him right now and call me, and like,
he like called me on. I swear it was right after he left here because it was a Saturday, and he like when he calls, he's like. I mean, you've had conversation with him on the phone. He's like very like boom, 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 boom,
yeah.
boom. It's like
getting
boom,
shit
boom.
done.
I'm getting shit done. He's like, I need you on this podcast. I need you to talk to the guy. I'm gonna give you his number. You call him right now, dude. And it was just like. When Eric's talking to you, you listen, dude.
Yeah, man. And we put out the last one. I think was last week we watched, and then what's going to be awesome is he's going to start getting a little bit more comfortable because right now it's like we were talking and I'm like, all right, like let's maybe table some topics and then like but I want it to turn into like what it is as soon as we get in here because I try and tell them I'm like don't start talking, like I need to have everything like sit down, Jesse, you sit down, go, because there's like 25 minutes of the best shit ever,
and then it's not
recorded. But it'll work itself out. I want you to plug everything, anywhere anyone can get a hold of you, how they get, if they want shit done from you, their social media, anywhere where they can see anything Pro Builds.
Okay. So we have Pro Builds, the mobile bike shop, and that's at Instagram, ProBuild610. Our phone number is 484-892-6610. We have our awesome Pro Builds racing team, which is a big passion project, a bunch of young talented rippers. They're also on Pro Builds Racing on Instagram, and pretty much stay tuned, man. We're about to have some big news coming up pretty soon. Some stuff going on in Bethlehem, but our sponsors transition, Maxis, Lehigh Valley Printing, Cushcore, Fox Racing. All those guys, man. Fly Racing, Mutt Society, dude. Those guys are awesome. Go check those guys out. They're doing a bunch of awesome stuff for kids pretty much anywhere, any country. They're trying to get kids that can't get on bikes or have access to bikes, just like showing what two wheels can do, like communities, all types of stuff, man. Those guys are awesome, man. And they're on Instagram and Mutt Society. Those guys are probably our best sponsor, my most favorite sponsor, my most proudest sponsor.
Besides Eric.
And Eric, dude. I mean, go check if you got any issues. I mean, as far as criminal or like, I don't even know. This dude like literally walked into the courtroom and it's like he was like best friends with everybody. And dude, like the respect that dude gets it's weird. Like I said, man, I met that dude and like 5 minutes into it, I was like, I wanted to be part of that. I was like,
yeah. And then he's doing, and we'll talk more after the show, but he's doing something with property somewhere and doing different shit. So I'm excited to even see what that's doing because he's like, what are you doing with those smash burgers? You want to sell food? I'm like, dude, let's go.
Yeah, I think I brought that up earlier that he was talking about setting up my mobile bike shop on his property. Apparently he has like a porch or a deck or something, and he was talking about somebody being there cooking burgers. I'm assuming that's you.
I hope.
And it's like next to a bike path or something. And I told him I'm down, dude. Whatever,
Yeah,
bro.
I hope I'm the burger guy. That's gonna be
for
so
sure,
much
dude.
fun.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that, man.
Cool.
So,
I'm gonna reach out to him because I got to schedule the next date, and I'm gonna get him on the phone this week and figure out what that was. If you're a first-time listener or watcher to anything Never Again, you can go to neveragainstudio.com. That has the YouTube, that has the audio, everything you need to know about us is on there. We do stuff for small businesses. I can help you with making commercials, all that. Social media, building brands, apparel. I work for Axelrad Screen Printing. So a lot of people, I don't ever push this, but a lot of people hit me up to get t-shirts made, whether they're starting a clothing company, they're doing something similar to what he's doing. Soccer teams, any type of apparel you need, I can handle it for you. They also do embroidery, and I've been doing that shit the longest. That's my bread and butter. So don't be afraid to hit me up for that. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and thank you so much for coming on, man. One of my favorite podcasts, because this was just a long conversation.
cheers, brother.
Cheers to you, man. I have to piss so bad.
I believe it's